Hey, Abby here. Today I'm going to be showing you how to make my new Gwendolyn style peony rose. And I created this very specially for my new niece that is coming into this world soon and named it after her. So I really love how it turned out, and let's go over our supplies. First thing you're going to want is some 65-pound cardstock, a glue gun, the templates which I've linked below this video, a rolling tool like a dowel or something to roll the petals with, and scissors or cutting machine. You're going to want to cut the following number of petals. You're going to need 8 extra large, 8 medium, 8 small, 8 extra small, and 2 center petals plus 1 8-sided base. And you can use a cutting machine for these, or you can use the printable PDFs. The cutting machine measurements are in the description below, and you can downsize this flower easily by subtracting use of the large and extra large petal if you want to create smaller sizes and variations of this flower. So let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so of course you're going to get all your petals cut out first, and once you've done that, we're going to start by curling them and cutting slits at the bottom. So I want you to cut about 1.5 inch to 2 inch slit at the bottom. It doesn't have to be exact, but just approximately that. And I want you to add some glue to one side, and I want you to slightly overlap the petal. Don't overlap too deeply, just slightly. Then I want you to use either like a dowel, or I'm using a spare tool here with a rounded edge, and you're just going to curl one end back and one side inwards. We're starting with the extra large petal, so make sure you start with the extra large petal here. But I want you to curl one side inwards and one side backwards. So you're going to do that for all of your extra large petals. When you move down to your large petals, you're going to do the exact same thing with that. You're going to cut a slit, you're going to overlap, and you're going to curl one side inwards and one side backwards for the large petals. It doesn't matter which side is curled inwards, which side is curled backwards, just keep it uniformed within the same size of petals. So we're moving down to our medium petal now. We're going to cut another slit. We're going to overlap with glue the same way we just did with the first 2 petals, but this time we're going to curl both sides inwards towards you. You're going to repeat that again with all of your medium petals. So I'm just showing you one of each petal here, but you're going to do that with all 8 petals for all the sizes. For your small, you're going to do the same thing you just did with the medium. You're going to cut a slit, you're going to overlap, and you're going to curl them inwards. As you get down to the smaller ones, you might need a smaller object to get that curl. So my kids actually broke my wooden dowel that I normally use right before I filmed this video. So I'm actually using a spare glue stick here. It's just my backup go-to method. So you can use that too if you don't have a dowel on hand. For your extra small petal, repeat the same thing we just did with the last 2 ones. Cut a slit, overlap, and then curl inwards. People ask me, what do I use to cut these out with? I do use a Cricut machine. I love my Cricut machine. You can find my full supply list below this video as well. So I want you to do that with all of your petals. Get them all done the same way. Now we're starting with our 8-sided base here and our extra large petals. Each side of this base represents where a petal is going to be placed. It's very helpful, especially for beginners, to keep your petals uniformed. Add some glue to the bottom back side of one petal and place it on one side of the 8-sided base. You're going to repeat this with all 8 extra large petals. Add glue to the bottom and then place it on one of the sides of the 8-sided base. Just keep working it around like this until you finish all 8 petals. When you get down to your last petal, it can be helpful to tuck the one side underneath the starting petal side so that your flowers come together more seamlessly. You can just whittle up one side so that you can stick it under and get that nice uniformed look. Place it under one side there, and now you'll see that your petals look a lot more uniformed because they've come together in a kind of fanned out fashion. Okay, so you're going to continue now. You're going to keep doing the exact same thing we just did, but we're going to this time make sure we're placing each petal, our large petals now, in between two of the extra large petals. You don't want them to be directly in line with each other. You want them to alternate. So keep adding in your large petals, but this time just make sure you're placing them in between the extra large that are below it, and go around in a circle until you've added all 8 large petals into your flower. Again, when you get down to your last petal here for your large, it can be helpful to tuck it underneath the one side to help it look more uniformed. So if you don't get that right the first time, it's okay, just keep practicing. It's not too difficult, but it can help your flower make your flower look even more beautiful. We're going to continue now with our medium. So we're just going to do exactly what we just did. We're just going to add the medium petals in between the large petals into the next layer. So just keep going around with those 8 medium petals. And it can be helpful when you get to this point to kind of bend the petal upwards a little bit as you're adding it in, because it helps it, not lay too flat to where your flower looks like it's evenly blooming rather than the petals kind of falling backwards. So you can just add a little bit of a bend and tuck when you glue in your petal there. So go ahead and add all 8 in, and you're going to do the same thing at the end where you kind of tuck that last petal in between the first one that you added for the medium petals. See, I'm tucking my petal again here, and now I've added all 8 medium petals into the flower. You should have something like this so far. Everyone's might look a little bit different. It's okay, it comes with practice and time. Go ahead and grab your small petals now and continue in the same fashion as we've been doing all along, just gluing them in and making sure that they're being placed in between the previous petal layers so that they're alternating. And keep going around and add all 8 of your small petals in. If for any reason this is coming together for you and you feel like your petals are too spread out, you can always add in extra petals. If you want your petals to be closer together and there to just be an abundance of petals, then you can add 10 petals to this layer if you want to. So I'm just showing you the way that I've built the flower, that you're seeing it in the photos and such, but there's not an exact right or wrong way to do it. So feel free to add some extra petals if it feels like that comes together better for you. If it feels like 7 petals fits in better than 8, that's fine too. Don't feel like you have to be 100% exact to what I'm doing. Interpret it for yourself and how your own flower comes together. I'm tucking my petal here as well for my last small petal. And you should have something like this now at this point. And we're going to add in our last layer of extra small petals, going around here in the exact same way that we've been doing all along. So go ahead and add that final extra small layer in. And as you do it, notice that I'm kind of, again, bending the petal upwards as I'm placing them in to make sure they're standing up nice and straight and they're not laying too flat into the flower. I'm adding in my final extra small petal here, and you should have something that kind of resembles this at this point. Okay, the next step is going to be to work with our center cuts. So you're just going to take each one of these cuts and you're going to curl each one of these petal points inwards. So again, my kids broke my wooden dowel. Normally I'd be using a wooden dowel here. I'm just using a spare tool I have on hand that's working best for as I'm wrapping around these petal points. You're just wanting to give them a curl. And you're going to do this, and in just a minute we're also going to shape them more with our hands, because you can only get so deep of a curl using a tool. You're going to need to use your hands to kind of shape the rest of it. So once you get that initial curl, just keep kind of reinforcing that curl with your fingers and just bending everything inwards and rolling it with your fingertips and getting it to just fall inwards, because this is going to be what our final center is going to be. You can also kind of gather it with your whole hand and turn it over in your hand and kind of crush the bottom a little bit. I know that sounds weird, but kind of give the little bottom a squeeze, because that's going to make the petals want to naturally fold inwards towards that angle that you were kind of curling a minute ago. So do this with both of those center petals. I just skipped forward here. Both of mine have been done now, so do this with both of them. And then gather them in your hand like I just did a minute ago. Squeeze the bottom a little bit, and then add some generous amount of glue and place it directly into the center of your flower. Give it a little push down and just get it in there. Work with the petals as you need to get them to curl inwards with your fingers there. And then grab your second centerpiece and do the same thing. Kind of gather it in your hand, get it to curl itself inwards, and get it all together in one hand there, and flip it over. And again, sort of squeeze and tuck the bottom so that it wants to hold itself together naturally. And add a generous amount of glue again to the bottom there. And go ahead and place that final petal into the center. If you feel you need to add one more, you can of course add one more. I'm usually okay with 2, but if you feel you need to add another one, that's totally fine as well. So once you get that in there and you're able to sort of work with your petals as needed to get them to lay in their final position, your Gwendolyn Peony rose will then be complete, and you'll be able to hang this up on your walls or for your events. And I really hope that you enjoy this tutorial, and I hope you go and make something truly beautiful with it. And feel free to share that with me on AbbiKirstenCollections.com. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial, everyone, and if you want to find this template, you can find it on CatchingColorflies.com, and you can also find freebies on my blog, AbbiKirstenCollections.com.